Hello and good morning. I can see Dr. Wilson that you are here. More are joining. I just had a little bit of traffic, so to say, technical problems. Have fixed them, and here we are. I'm about to start sharing my screen. Just 1 second. Okay. So, once again, hello everyone. Thank you for joining. And today we are going, this is the 7th of October today, and we are going to talk a lot about the future of Ukrainian agriculture. But before that, I would like to remind you a few things, why we are doing what we are doing. So first of all, at the beginning of the war, we decided to do some charity projects, and we created World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine program that is aimed to help the small family farms in Ukraine who suffered from the Russian aggression, whose facilities and houses were destroyed when these villages and towns were under Russian occupation. So our aim is to help those who cannot help themselves and who have no chance to get any loans or any help from other side. What we are doing for them, first of all, we are trying to fix their houses so that they would have roof over their head, and also we are trying to do our best in reconstruction of their production capacities, repurchasing them agricultural equipment, and of course farm animals. So in order to be most transparent and to be viable, and for everyone to understand that everything is objectively, the decisions are made objectively, we have invited world specialists and people from different countries who have strong reputation to be our ambassadors. So they joined on the board, and they are helping us make the right decisions on how the money is distributed. In other words, every spending is to be assured and to be confirmed by the board of ambassadors. We do not give off cash to our aid recipients. Instead, we provide them with the reconstruction services and equipment. And we do not upgrade. If these farmers, small family farmers, they knew and they had experience of using 120 horsepower tractor, they are to get the same 120 horsepower tractor. So how people throughout the world can help Ukrainian family farms? First of all, the direct donations to one of the best reputable NGOs, LifeNets. This is the American NGO that is collecting the budget for us, and once the board of ambassadors approved it, it goes to our Ukrainian NGO, and then it goes directly to the service providers. The other way is, in other words, we try to return something to provide something in return for the goodwill of people who donated over $200, and we provide them with opportunity to either join our Travelite Agro online school that has more than 500 hours of useful crops production information, or join us on any of our travels and I'm sorry, get the equal discount to what they have donated. The nearest trip that we are organizing, and we already have 6 participants, is to New Zealand, December 3rd, December 16th. Of course, more information is following this, can be found following this QR code or at our website, wrru.org. Of course, we are looking for the possibility to spread the word and to deliver the information, the true information from the fields, both battle and agricultural, to as many people as possible. So if you have a possibility to organize us a visit, a presentation, or maybe you can invite, you can make the media interview us, we would be grateful for any spread of the word about our initiative. So we have two goals. First of all, to raise some money for the reconstruction of these small farmers. Secondly, to raise awareness of the world of the true situation, both in rural areas, in small farms, and in agricultural industry in general. At all. This is our team who work in Ukraine on this project, and some of them are involved in biweekly preparation. I would like to say thank you to Irina Muchak, Yulia Bilenka, and Andriy Nabukhotny for helping us with preparation of the material, and Vitaly Grishenko for helping us searching for the right sources of the material. So now let's go to the battlefield updates. As you know, Ukraine has been liberating our lands, legitimate lands that belong to Ukraine for over a month already. And it's been successful. So far, we have liberated about 5% of our total area. For you to remember, at the beginning of the fall period, so in the end of August, Ukraine was occupied by 20%. Now it is estimated about 15%, which is a huge success. Of course, the main two directions are the east, which is Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast, Donbass, as it is called, and Kherson. In Kherson, the situation is stable, and Ukrainian army, they are moving slowly, step by step, in order to economize the Ukrainian soldiers' lives, if it is correct to say so, so to be most accurate in the attacks, counterattacks, and to not to put the soldiers at additional risk, just like Russia is doing. And of course, very big success in Donetsk Oblast was that the town, the city of Liman was freed up. That was after Izium and Balakleya. I will mention more about what we found there, what Ukrainians found after de-occupation of that region. But Liman was a stronghold for Russian army, and now it's under Ukrainian control, which is very good. So as of today, Ukraine has liberated almost 1,500 settlements, those villages, towns, and cities in Donetsk, Luhansk, Mykolaiv, Kharkiv, and Kherson oblasts. So all the oblasts that are partially occupied have had the deoccupied settlements there within this month and a couple of days. Still, there is to go 15% of Ukrainian total area. As I mentioned, in Kharkiv Oblast, there were a lot of findings that are, at least softly speaking, upsetting. On the picture, you can see the golden dental crowns that were taken off the live people during the tortures that they were doing on them. There were a couple of these chambers in the cities, in the towns that were liberated. And these findings, they reminded us of the World War II, when German fascists, before killing people in the gas chambers, they were taking off golden crowns. So as you can see, it's either those people who are attacking us haven't yet come to the 21st century, or it's the whole country that is still lives by the previous laws of war and previous understanding of what is humanity. So unfortunately, over 1,200, almost 300 civilians in Kharkiv region were officially confirmed to have been killed by Russian soldiers, and those include 56 children. At almost 2,500 civilians were injured. For you to understand, the villages that were inhabited of 90 people have about 30 now. This is the smallest village, and this is the ratio of the people that are left, so 1 to 3 or even less in some areas. The Russians do not take their defeat in these regions with dignity. Instead, they are shelling even more the cities that are closer, that are within distance that they can reach with their artillery. Those are Kharkiv, although Kharkiv is now less attacked, but still. And of course, Zaporizhia. Unfortunately, even this night, even this morning, Zaporizhia was badly attacked. And yesterday, for example, 7 missiles unfortunately succeeded, and it killed 7 people. So huge devastations in that city. Why? The question remains. We all know that Iran, who previously and even right now were buying Ukrainian agricultural commodities, sold a number of, by different estimations, a couple of hundreds of drones, military drones. They sold those to Russia. In Iran, they were called Shahed, and there are different models, but in the when it appeared in Russian army, they called it Herань, which is kind of a tree, but it doesn't change anything because the form, the shape, and the color remain the same, just rebranded. So the world knows that these drones are coming from Iran, and Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs have forced the ambassador of Iran to leave Ukrainian embassy. I mean, Iranian embassy in Ukraine, and they have claimed a note of that was asking for more information. However, Iran did not recognize the referendums. So they're trying to play the fiddle on both sides. We'll see what it will lead to. So as a result, a couple of days ago, by the way, me and my family are already were already in Kyiv at that moment. Kyiv Oblast was almost more than half of the night under the air attack sirens. And as it turned out, 12 of those drones were sent to Bila Tserkva, which is the satellite of Kyiv, about 1 hour drive from Kyiv, 70 kilometers, to their military barracks. Of course, there were no soldiers because a majority of them are in the battlefields, but the others were in the shelter. So nobody died. However, there were people injured, and of course, a lot of damages. 6 out of 12 were eliminated on the way, but 6 approached. Here are the fresh numbers of today, of yesterday, I'm sorry, of the liquidated Russian personnel and equipment. 61,000, over 61,000 of Russian soldiers have been killed in Ukraine. And from different sources, we are hearing that although this information is coming from Ukrainian armed forces, but it is quite accurate. Even Russian, some of the Russian sources confirm that this is accurate. Other than that, I would like to say that more than a half of all Ukrainian tanks that we have right now have been, so to say, left behind by these soldiers who succeeded to escape, Russian soldiers. So we joke that Lend-Lease by Russia so far to Ukraine has been more successful in the equipment that we received. So more than a half of all the Ukrainian tanks have been acquired since February 24th from Russians. Meanwhile, Russia are celebrating. They do not have anything else left but to use their to act as if they are winning, because they are in a huge trouble within the country because of people starting to understand that this is not a special operation, but this is a war, and the mobilization, which is massive in Russia right now. Even women have been receiving the invitations to military departments. So there are a lot of people who are unhappy, and we'll talk more about that. So these occupants, they're trying to join, to celebrate and to show some happy faces for the media. Of course, today is a big day because, first of all, it is the as of right now, at least 2 towns were already liberated within today. But also Putin is celebrating his 70th anniversary. The only thing I would like to wish to him is rest in peace. Nothing else, as soon as possible. And also, it is a funny coincidence. Maybe you have heard, but the explosions in the cities of Russia, like, for example, military cities in Crimea or in the neighboring oblasts to Ukraine, their military objects have been exploding. So trying to translate it using Google Dictionary, explosion in Russian, and if you translate it into Ukrainian, it sounds similar to the crop which is named cotton. So it has become kind of like a meme or a funny saying that more cotton is happening in Russian military bases. So today is the day of cotton, the actual crop. Very, I'd say, very nice coincidence. So, by the way, the referendums. So far, only North Korea and Russia have admitted joining of these territories to Russia. And of course, after that, they have again started talking about negotiations with Ukraine. There are a lot of debates of what it can bring to the war. Majority of the specialists say that these referendums and even so to say legitimate joining Russia, these territories, it will not change the war outcome. However, for Russia, it gives a few scenarios, makes a few scenarios possible, additionally possible. For example, starting to send their more of their troops, not contracted troops, but regular army to Ukrainian territories, because they claim it is Russia. Secondly, it allows them to use more equipment, military equipment, like nuclear equipment. However, it looks like they are bluffing and they are afraid to use it because the consequences will be too serious for them. And of course, they can announce massive mobilization officially and change it to the status of war, so martial law, because it, according to their fake legislation, it looks like their territories have been attacked by Ukrainian armed forces, and these territories are really being liberated. All of the 4 regions that, so to say, joined Russia since referendums have lost or have rejoined Ukraine. Therefore, and no actions on the Russian side, no serious actions, but those drones have been taken since then. Of course, the mobilization, they are sending these untrained soldiers for their true death. And again, specialists say that this will not change the situation very much. So about the mobilization, they have claimed that they need 300 soldiers. The question arises, if they need an alternative army counting 300,000, with the losses that their officials claimed are only about 10,000, 5 to 10,000, where is the rest of the army? Why do they need this additional mobilization? This is what Russians start to understand. So out of those that are mobilized right now, 29% they are not wanting to fight. And on the social media, there are different videos of them breaking their own legs, arms, of them doing all the crazy stuff, even committing suicide because they don't want to go and fight. And there are still people in Russia who are smart enough to understand that this is one-way ticket. So in August, 48% wanted to continue. Now only 29 are for the war. The numbers are changing dramatically. So far, about 700 people have left Russia through via all sorts of transportation possibilities, airports, airplanes, and the prices for air tickets went up 10 times at least high. So it would be cheaper to fly to United States and back business class rather than fly from Russia to Astana, the nearest big city that is, so to say, friendly with Russia. Of course, no one is flying to Europe because Europe has limited, first of all, they need the visas right now. Secondly, Europe is limiting the possibility for them to enter the country. A lot of Kazakh people and Georgians, they started to treat Russians just like Russians were treating them years before, when people from those countries were coming to Russia. So it's the process that is showing all the true situation happening inside the Russian Federation. And it was very interestingly noticed that Russia is the first country in the histories where the people are fleeing away due to the war, but the war that this country has become, not the war that is happening inside this country, but the war that they are guilty of. Today in the morning, I found this fact. It's probably still not officially published, but there were a couple of Russians who crossed Bering Sea by boat and ended up in the island close to Alaska. So they were escaping the war and they fled to Alaska on boat. So you see what risks they are taking, because they are military departments. They don't care who to take. They don't care what is the preparation level, military preparation level of those soldiers, and they don't care what is the medical state of these people. A good piece of news is that Ukrainian heroes, those who were protecting Azovstal, the factory in Mariupol, they have been, a few of them, 215 of them have been freed from Russian prisoners. They were prisoners of the war on the Russian side, and they have been freed. Some of them were left in Turkey until the end of the war. Some returned to Ukraine, and 10 were foreigners from United Kingdom, from United States, Morocco, Sweden, and Croatia. So what you can Google and you can hear their interviews. What they have lived through is something that you will never wish to anyone else, because they, for example, the Ukrainians were saying that they were beaten, and a lot of the prisoners of the war lost their teeth. So Russians, when they were providing them with food, they brought dry bread like croissants, but much more harder. They gave only 30 seconds for the food, for eating, and then they forced them to start running. Therefore, each of those 215 had the medical symptoms of not being fed enough, so being kept in the hunger. Now we are shifting to the agricultural field updates, and unfortunately there is not much good for me to share with you. There have been a lot of talkings that this year is still more or less successful for Ukrainian agricultural industry, but the next one can be a disaster. That to speak, recently there was a conference, online conference, where Alex Lisitsa, the CEO of IMC company, and Dmitry Skornyakov, who is also today going to be talking with us on today's biweekly, they have shared their understanding of the future season. So first of all, in the world, the prices for the commodities tend to be lowering, and in Ukraine they have been already low enough due to the logistics, due to the problems with safety. Therefore the insurance and the logistical costs have gone way up due to very narrow corridors to export these commodities. But in addition to that, they are facing the future reduction, so probable future reduction in the prices. What is happening in the fields right now, I will try to mention it in the couple of the future slides, but for you to understand the general situation, there is no possibility for Ukrainian farmers to take enough loans at reasonable interest rates in order to cover their debts and to be able to plant, to be able to buy the seeds, to be able to buy enough of the crop protection materials, enough of fertilizers. Also, there is no understanding that the grain corridor will be continued after the 22nd of November, because this agreement right now that made it possible has been made only for 4 months, 120 days. And it looks like Russia wants to stop it. Putin has been claiming when he was meeting with African countries' representatives that a lot of that all of the grain that was supposed to be kind of a supposed so that was supposed to be gone to their countries, African countries, Middle East countries, are kind of all sent to Europe, which is not true. And I will provide you the facts. So their inability to export right now and no understanding of what is going to be with export in the future, farmers cannot plan. If in the peaceful time farmers were planning about 12 to 18 months ahead, right now the furthest planning is 14 days because of the situation in the country, because of the situation with the commodities. So a lot of farmers have taken the loans in the spring. Right now they need to pay those back, but they haven't succeeded selling the commodities. All the prices that they are offered for their commodities are below the break-even point. So a lot of crops are left in the field. In addition to that, the rains that are the highest over the last couple of years in the period of I'm sorry, something happened with internet. Dr. William, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Dr. William?
Yeah.
Dr. Paul?
Yes. No. Yes, I can.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can.
Something happened with the internet.
Yeah, we just lost connection.
I'm starting from. Okay. So here. So Ukraine with the future commodities. Also, this very massive rainfall, they have created, they have taken off all the best suitable period for the winter crops to be planted. The most optimum timing for winter crops to be planted have been gone. So as a result, corn must be dried. And in order to dry it to the optimal 5% per metric ton, under the current gas prices is $50 per metric ton, whereas in and I will show you the prices, they are a little bit over $200. There is a question whether it is necessary, whether it is feasible to be harvesting corn, or it's better to leave it in the fields. There were some ideas of harvesting corn and burning it as the energy source in order to dry out those being in the field faster than the corn. Yes, corn will have a lot of problems with fungi and so on if it is staying throughout the winter or till late in the fall. But sunflower is reducing its quality much quicker. There is a huge necessity for all the agricultural companies, corporations, to acquire liquid funds. In other words, they need money for the operational costs. And it can be sorted out. And this is what Mykola Solsky, our Minister of Agricultural Agrarian Policy, was talking about, is to create some kind of the bank, Alex Lisica, who was mentioning that, he said that this bank would be accumulating the funds from the foreign banks, taking and assessing their risks and holdings and corporations to restructurize their debts. And this is what is happening with Nibia. They succeeded. They actually have hired their bank in order, the Lazard Bank, international and making the plan how to restructurize its Nibelun's debts. You know that unfortunately the owner of Nibelun was killed a little bit over running. So they have hired this bank in order to be able to officially apply for more loans. This is kind of like the first step to a success story, and that is, according to Alex Lisica, their agricultural industry of the future is not going to be the same as it was before the war. There will be a lot of structure structural changes in. Now let's go to the storage facilities. According to, again, Ais Lisica, the problem with the storage turned out to be the smallest out of all the problems that agricultural producers are having. Because farmers, and of course their inventability, because they have started building and fixing their barns for the flat storages. So they have, and there was a lot help quality problems, because not everyone is used to using them for storages. However, it is one of the options, and the farmers who have lost their elevators due to the war were first to receive those big bags. The problem is more the price and the future of Ukrainian agriculture. So according to the international estimates, 75 million metric tons, this was the capacity of the storages in Ukraine before they were destroyed. So it is about 14%. According to Ukrainian latifundist estimation, before the war, it was 57 million metric tons. So if we lost 10 million, so it is 47. For the future, all these facilities will need to be rebuilt, and 10% of those, actually 7.5 million, are still under occupation. What is happening with them? No one knows. This is there's no more accurate information present as of today. So the actual grain corridor or grain initiative, how it has been working. As a result, within 2 months, of grains and foodstuffs. For you to compare, before the war, we were able to export it within 1 month. So 50% from the capacity before the war, that is to add up to the railroads and truck transportation throughout the war, and if it is guaranteed for the future and the grain corridor is prolonged. However, Mykola Sosky said that so far it is too early to say whether it is going or not going to be prolonged. National officials to continue to prolong it. But one of the recent cases of Russians, once they got those drones from Iran, they have first been sending it to the facilities, buildings were destroyed. So again, Russia, not liking the effect, the outcome from this grain corridor, they didn't. They tried to make it to 2% of wheat were sent to the countries that are considered developing: Middle East, Southeastern Asia, Asia, and Africa. The rest, 28%, was sent to Europe. Discount for this for our commodities. As I already said, the threat is to that this treaty survived, a number of agricultural producers, for example, Kernel, was very much dependent on the sales on the trading, because they have this program where they are buying commodities from the farmers. To inability to export, they even started to sell off the land because they needed money for operational costs. That was happening in summertime. So a lot of Ukrainian agricultural holdings are at risk. For example, farmland, I might be mistaken, the ownership by Bakhmatyuk is also in troubles, and there are going to be some lawsuits going on about it, but they have the processing facilities, and they have their most important, they feed these commodities to their chicken, and they sell meat. So this is kind of the future that Ukrainian Ukrainian agriculture will be shifted to selling not the commodities or raw materials, but rather the processed materials. For example, this which is called Grain Alliance. It is owned by a Swedish company. They have purchased, and you can see the elevator this summer, the terminal near the border, the western border. Here is Chop, so this is Carpathian Mountain, Cherna nad Tisoi. The capacity of the terminal is 20,000 metric tons, but they are going to increase the capacity, and it has a very good transportation so that the transportation hub own 88 of cars of their own. Mykola Solsky was present at these negotiations between the three countries, Ukraine, Slovakia, and Sweden. About a possibility of having Russia as a neighbor forever, we need not to rely on seaports. We need to have alternative ways of transportation by land, and this is what Grain Alliance is currently doing. It's good to have this connection with Europe if the farm is located closer to the western part. But what to do for the farms, like for example, IMK, which is owned Oblast, and majority of their fields are in Chernihiv, Poltava Oblast, which have been, and Sumy, by the way, too, which have been under occupation at the beginning. So, and the distance of the future of Ukrainian agriculture as processing is the growing dairy export from Ukraine. Ukraine has always been known to produce a lot of dry milk. And Ukraine wasn't able to export so much. Therefore, right now, when EU lowered down the requirements, the demands of quality, Ukrainian products, dry milk, and butter. So as you can see, the gray line here, this is the amount in the dollars. So the revenue from the export of dairy products to EU compared to those last years. So dollars only in September. That's one of the ways out. Now, a few slides about Donetsk Oblast. We have started this tradition, and we speak about each of Ukrainian oblasts from the standpoint of 1/10 from our total population of Ukraine, quite a huge population. The area takes up a little less than 5% of the total acreage of Ukraine, and the farmland 2 million hectares. Uh, 2 million hectares and so on, but the total Ukrainian farmland is 28 million hectares. For you to compare, the war has been in this oblast since 2014. Using weapons, they have taken over the power and created kind of like a junta there. So they have annexed this. They have announced a declaration of sovereignty, and Ukraine was just at the lowest level of its functioning. And of course, we were not able to withstand them as we are doing it right now. There were a number of battles that still needs investigation that ended up in Russia at first allowing Green Corridor for the soldiers to leave, but then they shoot them in their backs, like the jackals with no dignity. So at first they give the word "you will be saved," then they shoot them to it in Ukrainian and Russian. Another important event was the battle for Donetsk airport, which lasted almost a year, 248, not almost a year, but 9 months. 248 the airport were called cyborgs, so they are our legendary soldiers. Of course, we all know about Minsk agreements when Ukraine was forced to sign the no attack treaty. As a result of this, on the other side, they were shooting Ukrainians, but Ukrainians could not answer with the same. So in 2018, the military actions in that territory were renamed to Joint Forces Operation from action. So in 2022, of course, Russians were proceeding to recapture the oblast, because not all of the Donetsk Oblast have been occupied since 2014. And they call it separate entities. And just before the war, Russian Federation have admitted them to be the territories, the sovereign territories. Of course, after that, the result, 24th of February, Russia started their attack, their full occupation of Ukraine. Right now, when the mobilization was announced in been also asked to supply the army. So mobilization is going on very seriously in these Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. For you to understand, Donetsk city had, after the war, when a lot of people fled, escaped, and more Russian soldiers with their families, Russian administration came in, there is 0.7 million right now. But this is the biggest city, Donetsk, that do not show any legitimacy of neither referendums or the decision of being independent. Of course, starting from the beginning of this war in February, destroyed 95% of the city was destroyed by Russians, by the artillery, by the air attacks, and there were Azovstal defense. The Azov battalion, which that is a nuclear shelter underneath the Azovstal factory. They have been staying there for quite long until the president of Ukraine ordered them to surrender. In order to save their lives, because over 2,000 people were hiding in those shelters. And now, as of the end of the September, we succeeded freeing up only 200, 1/10. There is much more to work on. Right now, farmer from this city, it is the most active battlefield of the whole over 1,000 kilometers front line. So Russians are trying to succeed in recapturing all, but they are actually losing territory. October 1st, they lost Liman. Agricultural industry in this oblast. It is, as all Ukrainian oblasts, very much agricultural. But it has potatoes under irrigation and vegetables in their controlled also irrigation. Very developed is horticulture. We have there all types of animals, I mean, popular ones in Ukraine. Cows for meat and but in addition to that, we have the dairy production, seafood production, because Mariupol, this is the port, and there is the common for Ukraine agricultural industry. They have seafood production. These are some of the brands that represent their processing to butter, to sausages, to oils. So just like in other oblasts, there is a lot of processing in addition to the production. Port of Mariupol, it is one of the biggest ports in Ukraine. However, it is probably fifth by size was exporting agricultural commodities in 2021 to Turkey, Lebanon, and Egypt, and you can see the numbers from this port. It was predominantly used by the Azov steel and either the ore or the actual steel material. Therefore, at the beginning of the war, there was a lot of metal, steel, cast iron on the territory of the port, and there was a lot of grain in the war. Now, the planting season. This is one of the worst planting seasons in Ukrainian history, since agricultural industry of Ukraine has become profitable. As I've said, as I've mentioned before, for September, right now we are only at the 26% from the forecasted areas that must have been planted, but for you to compare, this is in hectares planted of winter crops. Farmers do not know what to plant. They do not have operational costs for planting, and they do not have the ability. Even they even lack the people for planting. Being harvested last year, it was last year it was a little bit over 85 total by the end of the production. This year they estimate corn yield. The corn has started to be harvested a couple of days ago, maybe about 10 to 2 weeks. And the first statistics is already coming from the fields. So the average yield of predicted, the yield has dropped radically. Of course, not that much as it was in 2020, the worst year over 100 years, due to the drought, but it was just because in majority cases, farmers could not afford were using before. So for the reason of mined fields, for the reason of active war zones, for the reason of limited supplies and limited financial possibilities, the farmers didn't earn 4 metric tons per hectare. For you to understand, it is approximately 1/3 from 200 bushels per acre. Only 1/3. That is with good rainfall. So 25 million, not out of, but from 25 to 27, this is the projected yield versus 42 last year. This is huge decrease in production that resulted, like I said, in bad programs, and of course in lesser area, ended up a little less than 20 million metric tons. And 5.5 of barley was 5.5 million metric tons of barley was harvested. Please keep in mind that as always from the previous season for all of those commodities. So this marketing year, Ukraine is going to be exporting as much as it can. However, the next year, the next spring crops year and harvesting losses. This is the table that I've been using for since the beginning of the grain corridor. So the price that you can see here, it was the price in metric for per metric tons in Ukraine as of July. And that's the these are the prices that go first in the farm in the middle of Ukraine, which is Kirovohrad, Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, and this is at the port. You can see that's the current price for those commodities in the world. So you see how much less Ukrainian farmers are getting per metric ton than the farmers abroad. In case with wheat, a quality of wheat, if it is feed wheat or if it is the first class wheat, the second class wheat. So we do not produce the highest quality wheat. There is still work to do to be able to produce high quality wheat, but okay, I just asked if Dmytro Skornyakov is going to join soon. This is the slide that shows how expensive the transportation is to these two locations. You can see how radical, how drastic is the pricing for logistics. So these are the prices, the updates on prices as of 20th of September. Right now, it doesn't previous biweekly. So we are going to have a guest right now, Dmytro Skornyakov. He is the he holds the citizenship of Israel. And that suffered most in Ukraine due to the war, because their territories, and he will be probably talking more about it himself. The where there was the most occupation, and in Mariupol they have lost almost all access to their facilities. So if you allow me, I will make sure I will ask this. He said that he is going to be driving at that moment, so probably he's let me, before he joins, let me tell you a short story. This was published recently. One of the farms in Kharkiv Oblast that was freed up between beginning of occupation and right until the date when Russian forces were forced to go back was terrible. So that was one of the best agricultural, or they were using the crop production model, regenerative agriculture, and there were even trainings happening based in their fields. Their total land bank is or was 25,000 hectares, non-flour, sugar beet. So not much of the common crops for United States, corn, soybeans, actually none, but still they were successfully succeeding good results in yielding of those crops just because of minimum tillage or no own the elevator, the total capacity of which is 110,000 tons. They had a modern dairy farm that had about 12 cow sheds. Unfortunately, on the 28th of their farm, and only 1,000 of cows, so 1/3, survived after this attack, because people hardly had time to escape into the shelters. Employee, he died. He didn't succeed hiding. So the first bomb hit the cow parlor. So at first they were saying, Russian soldiers, that they feel sorry for the people, for the animals, that those were Russians airplanes one day, but the next day they changed. The same soldiers, they changed their narrative. They were saying that those were Ukrainians. Why? Because it makes no sense. The question why remains open. So then when the weather has been becoming warmer, the dead corpse of the animals started environmental disaster that could have happened. So people that worked there, majority of them fled the war before that, but those who remained joined their efforts with the local people from the villages, and they after that they when they were freed, when the land was liberated and Russian soldiers retreated, they found a farm in Poltava region, and sent their animals. That's company, the agricultural company that was successful before Agrosfeed. They didn't succeed surviving, because there is not a hectare that is planted. There is no possibility of building that were destroyed. Almost all of those cow sheds were destroyed. And when Russian soldiers came there, at first they used the service department for the equipment, well-equipped service station for the farm equipment, that when they were leaving, they took everything they could from there, all the instruments and so on, even wondering how come in the car repair station there is a shower, which was very strange for them. So the company is almost bankrupt right now. They need financing, but they are in a red zone, and there is no possibility to sell the commodities, because the majority of the commodities got burned down during this air attack. The small farms of our aid recipients. So you know that in Ukraine, the small family farms are producing huge amounts of horticulture products and dairy products. So they are very important. Production is going to be mainly coming from the small family farms that count up to 150 cows. So these are the small producers that we must support. And here's what we are doing. Of 2-3 weeks ago, and here is the photograph from yesterday. So we are succeeding moving forward in rebuilding her house. That's right now the second so to all the donations that we received. Alexander was the first success story, because when we spoke about him, when we made a video, journalists from Ukrainian agricultural, he contacted Mais company, and Viktor Borisov presented this tractor for him. So Alexander actually is one of the successful farmers who succeeded succeeded to start plant destroyed. So right now we are just cleaning out these remains of this barn, and we will shift to building this barn after Allah's house is built. All is medium farmers in Ukraine, private individual farmers who donated the windows, used windows for those two premises. They donated the refrigerators and milking equipment for Irina. Like I said, any spread of the word is welcome about our initiative, and it is very important to proceed doing what we are doing right now, because the territories are liberated and a lot of scary stories are coming out. A lot of stop doing what we are doing, as long as we have the support from all of you. It looks like Dmytro is out of the reach for today, so probably we will record the video interview with him for him to tell his story, how he ought to share the information about World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine with anyone you could share. This session of today is going to be recorded on YouTube. It will be posted on our website. So anyone who has missed later on YouTube. Meanwhile, thank you very much for your attention.